This is a meeting of the Devens Jurisdiction Framework Committee. Today is December 11th, 2024. I will call the roll. Janice Livingston.
Here.
Robert Pontbriand, Brian Hildebrand.
Here.
Rich Maori.
Here.
Bill Marshall. Neil Angus.
Here.
John Catter.
Here.
Logan Breeze.
Here.
Brian Sawyer.
Here.
Ryan McDivitt.
Here.
Christian Cullen. We have a majority. We are in order. My name is Victor Normand. I will chair this meeting. We have minutes from our meeting of November the 13th. Any comments? Corrections? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Hold on. Wait a minute. Max, my screen isn't working. Oh, there it goes. Never mind.
Ask and you shall receive.
Just like that. Okay, now you can.
So moved.
A motion by Neil. Is there a second?
Second.
Rich Maori. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay. Oh, sorry. I meant an aye. I
Without
don't know what it-
objection, the minutes are approved. Stakeholder update, Town of Air. Janice?
No update today.
No update.
Robert's
Okay.
out and just, so.
Town of Harvard, I will give an update. At our meeting in November, we discussed the budget information we received from Mass Development, and particularly the aspect of the budget that related to Devens. Is there feedback?
Yeah, I muted everybody. Okay.
We noted Devens utility budget shows a profit of $14 million based on the documentation that Mass Development provided. I also mentioned to the Devens committee that there were new members to the Framework Committee. Brian Hildebrand from Shirley, Ryan McDivitt from Bristol Myers, and Jim Geller as an alternate Devens representative. We also finally discussed item number 17 of the framework elements, unified permitting, and approved the submission that you will receive later in this meeting. And that's the Harvard report. Anything, Rich?
No.
To be added? Town of Shirley.
There's nothing significant on our end as far as an update from
Okay.
last meeting.
Devens. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we are anticipating a good turnout for the Devens committee elections. I don't think we're having any transitions on the committee for the Devens committee, but the DEAC has a few openings that we're looking forward to having a good turnout for that election. That's the Devens Education Advisory Committee that interfaces with the Harvard School District. We are anticipating having a residents meeting the first half of 2025 to discuss numerous issues, whether it be jurisdiction or some of the possible housing alternatives on Devens. And we'll be watching with great interest as the first meeting of the working group, which is the housing working group, I guess, where the towns and Devens participates in 10 days. I think that's what it is. So we're looking forward to following what happens there. That's about it.
Okay. Devens Enterprise Commission. Neil or Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to update, we'll talk about the unified permitting process submittal. The DEC did review that at their last meeting and approved the submission that we'll go over later in the agenda. And just our work on with the working group with yourself to draft a framework for the grant funding. I'll also talk about a little bit more about the economic development bill as we get into that
Okay.
on the agenda.
Okay, next item under old business, working group update. Robert isn't here, so essentially the working group
Knock it up on the screen.
has produced a draft document that you should all have received, which is a summary of what we believe should be the primary scope of work for the state grant. I'll just quickly go through this document, then open it up for questions and comments.
Can you all see what's on the screen? on Zoom? I'm not sure if it's working right.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry,
Okay,
because something's not working
that's quite all right. So essentially, we believe, the committee believes that it should be a data-driven process, as objective as it can be. Allowed that there should be certain foundational documents that the consultant should receive, including Chapter 498, the reuse plan, other planning documents from Devens and surrounding towns, the annual reports from the towns, and assessors' valuation information. The scope of the work, we would be asking the consultant to quantify the current and projected levels of service, costs, and associated financial resources in sufficient detail required for the ongoing municipal operations of Devens, as distinct from the current operation of Devens as both having municipal and redevelopment functions. Specific municipal services to be analyzed are enumerated in this report, and they correspond to the 19 elements that each of the stakeholders is reviewing as part of the framework matrix. Additionally, the analysis of key performance indicators, looking at levels of service that should be maintained, and expressing an opinion as to how they should be maintained, or modify service levels with respect to permanent government, each of the permanent government options. And finally, in summary, the consultant will develop an overall financial model for the municipal operation of Devens that considers current and projected revenues and expenses based upon the data collection. The model should be readily configurable to allow for changes to options for permanent governance. So that is the essential summary of the scope that's before the committee today for comment. The scope anticipates that the $300,000 will not consider all of the aspects that we had originally envisioned the work of a consultant would do. That's contained in the request for expressions of interest document that this committee worked on. The scope suggested here is basically task 2 and task 5 of the EFI. Many of the language in many instances in this summary is lifted from that report. And then that will be the primary scope of work, and then the committee agreed that additional information relative to the capital projects and on the income side and real estate sales also on the income side from mass development should be studied and would be submitted as part of the RFP as an ad alternate, so that if the bids to perform the basic scope are such that they allow for an ad alternate, then this would be the item that would be suggested. If funds are not sufficient, then the ad alternate would not be included in this phase of the work of the consultant. Any questions? Just a reminder, the working group consisted of Neil, Brian, Robert, and Jim Geller was there representing Devens residents.
Mr. Chair, could anyone have comments before?
John?
May I? Thank you, Mr. So in reviewing the document, I can only speak from the resident standpoint. Ryan, perhaps from Bristol Myers Squibb, can talk about, Ryan, I'm not putting you on the spot if you want to talk about level of service, but something that I was asked to bring up is there's a word in here that says maintain or modify service levels. I know the residents of Devens are pretty happy with the current levels of service that they get. So there was concern for clarification. Do you see a diminution of the level of service at Devens? That would something that we would want to take a look at. Fire response, DPW. So that just came to mind. So as long as that's on top, and I'm gonna segue. Well, I can segue to the other part. Ryan, I don't know if you want to talk about level of service for BMS, but I know you don't have to. But I know the industries themselves, their businesses rely on an extremely high level of service. If you look at some of the labs that are at BMS, or some of the labs that do biotech work, if a toaster burns a piece of toast, they have to shut it down. Right? Everything shuts down. So the level of service, the fire department has to be there within 2 minutes. So that's a really huge concern for the level of service, not only from the residents of Devens, but also from the businesses of Devens. There's a real fiscal consequence, any diminution in the level of service. I'm not saying that that's what you're saying here. It's just that's what came up. I'll pause now if anyone else has comments on that. And I have another comment on the fiscal part of it.
I would.
Yeah, I would agree with what was said. This is Ryan from BMS. We obviously appreciate the level of service we have at Devens now, and we want to maintain that. And we are highly regulated in a highly regulated industry. So any halts to service really impede our operation. So appreciate y'all raising that.
Okay. Neil?
And Mr. Chair, from the deck standpoint, we've always said from the beginning, maintaining the existing level of service is an important element to be included. I don't think, I think that is included in here, but I guess looking at different alternatives or different, I don't think we're at that point yet. So maybe striking, a little bit of that language out of there just to clarify it might be appropriate. The language saying, or other alternatives to some respect. I'm sorry, I don't have, what is it here?
Your comment?
Specific services, level of service.
I think what you're, John and Ryan and Neil and maybe others are reading into this is a suggestion that the consultant will be asked to look at lower levels of service, and that's not what it says.
It's not the intent.
Oh, okay.
And I think it could work both ways. I mean, there could be a situation where the level of service is underestimated, for instance. So in other words, it's opening the door for the consultant to provide their expertise relative to the current level of service. And also, I'd like to say this what we're looking at here is basically a summary of the basis scope. The next step would be to actually write the RFP. And one component of the RFP would be public input. So the consultant will be required, as part of their work, to solicit feedback from all the stakeholders. So they, at that point, when they've reached a certain level of progress in their report, they would hold a public meeting and otherwise solicit public input with respect to their work. You had other comments, John?
And one other comment on the financial piece. This is a great document. I applaud you for putting it together. I think it's not only important to see the Devens financials and mass development, whatever they shake, and I think that they need to be transparent to the consultant. Some of my residents also feel that the same focus, whether it's in the initial phase or subsequent phases, the same evaluation from a fiscal standpoint needs to be conducted in the towns, right? And fiscal stability, spending, everything. Because as you had said a few months ago at a previous meeting, Mr. Chairman, that the reacquisition of properties on Devens may not be in the town's fiscal interest. Conversely, it's the same as the Devens residents are thinking, okay, what would we be signing up for? So I think it's very, very important to take a look at the Devens financials. But as a residents representatives, I'm getting a lot of questions. Okay, let's take a look at what's going on in Air, Shirley, and Harvard as well, because as you know, it's like a marriage, right? Some of the biggest problems are fiscal. So that's all.
And that did come up at the working group. I think that again, we were trying to do this as a phase one of the overall consultant activity, where evaluating the capacity of the three towns and Devens going forward would be something that clearly would be in a subsequent phase. But the working just felt that if we load this up too much, we'll get the same response we got from the RFEI, which is none. So we really tried to get at something very specific that's usable and also can demonstrate to others who might provide funding that we're on a clear path to a final report.
In that same regard, I think that's where language was added about, even though it wouldn't be as much of an in-depth view of Devens, but also considering annual reports. I think it says this assessor's tax information and current tax rates. I think that language was added to identify that even though it would be too much of an undertaking to look in-depth at each town and Devens, that at least using that language would include a very basic look at the towns. So.
Yeah, originally it had just said looking at Devens, and we added the surrounding towns to address that issue. And just going back to John's initial first comment, I think the language, I don't think there's any need for any language change, as I was suggesting. I think it's the one word, which is modify, which does not mean reduce or increase. It's looking at any potential options, but so I don't think there's any need for a text change.
So again, the next step will be to, if this committee approves this, would be to begin to draft the RFP. And one suggestion that came up by me at the framework committee meeting is who's going to do the drafting of the RFP. And one suggestion that I made was that we ask the state if we could use some of that $300,000 to hire someone to write the RFP. I think writing the RFP is critical for two reasons. One, so that it has some appeal to consultants, that they clearly understand what we're after, and also that it conforms to the grant application itself, that we want this to be tight. And I think that, Neil, maybe you have a better feel for this. I think we're talking short dollars to find someone who has experience writing RFPs in this type of situation to help draft the document. Neil?
Yeah, I don't think it would be a significant amount. And after you had made that suggestion, Victor, I was thinking, is this a possible way to invite Mass Development back to the table too? Having them consider helping us write a draft of the RFP. They have a lot of expertise in doing that, but just a thought.
It's a good thought. And along those lines, the person at Mass Development who was very helpful to this committee early on, who's no longer with Mass Development, might be a source.
Ed Stars.
Ed Starzyk. I think he clearly he's a competent person. I don't know where he's working now, or but someone like that who really has a feel for what we're trying to do and has some expertise. So I think the first step is, and I'll talk to Robert about this, contacting the grantor and seeing, can we do that, and is there any guidance that they can give us along those lines.
How much money do you think it would cost?
I mean, we've drafted everything, the meat and potatoes of it. It's more of the
The format and whatnot.
format, and so I don't think it would be a significant amount, maybe a couple $1,000.
Do you have another source of funding for that?
No,
Chance,
I'm
or?
just literally just asking because we have such a small amount, I just want to kind of focus it. But
Okay. So we'll work on that. Now, is there any other comments with respect to this? Are we on the right track here?
I think to your point, Victor, this is kind of an outline, a first step. We've got to get tie this back to the grant funding and the grant proposal that we submitted, Because there is a few things, as I mentioned at the working group, that are, to tie this back to the funding and the purpose of the funding. But I think we're on our way.
Are we maintaining the word modify?
Yeah, I think so. Neil?
I think it's fine the way it is. I think we all understand the intent. And as long as that intent is passed along to the consultant, I don't think, based on what we're going to get out of this, we're not going to be looking at a detailed analysis of scenarios. That's not the intent of this. This is a data gathering exercise. So I think it's fine.
Okay.
So essentially, we get a snapshot in time, a little forward-looking, of the financial picture at Devens. And that would
Current operations.
current operations, all that, and that'll be good for a few years.
It's the background information we need,
We need.
in order to make informed decisions
Yeah.
going forward. So.
Yeah, and a document that could be modified. And if we're lucky enough to get into the alternate, that's when we start to get projections from Mass Development on what work needs to be done, what kind of revenue can we anticipate. Okay, is there a motion to approve this as the summary scope of work?
So moved.
Janice, is there a second? Okay, I will call a roll. Okay, on the motion to approve.
That was just a little feedback.
Okay. On the motion to approve this as the summary scope of work for the federal grant, Janice Livingston,
Yes.
Robert Pomprium, Brian Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Rich Maori,
Yes.
Bill Marshall.
Sorry. My fault.
I think he said, I saw his lips move.
I know.
Neil
I-
Angus,
That was my fault. I accidentally muted him.
Yes.
John Catter,
Yes.
Logan Breeze, Brian Sawyer,
Yes.
Ryan McDivitt,
Yes, sorry, I got muted.
and the chair votes yes. The motion is approved.
Sorry, Bill, did you vote yes? We couldn't hear your vote.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Just wanted to make sure.
That was my fault. Sorry about that. So.
Okay, the motion passes, so we will, the working group will continue to work on this to bring forth to the committee a draft of the RFP, which may come back to the committee in increments, depending upon how the things unfold with the working group. Okay, next item under old business is Economic Development Bill update. Who has an update on that? John, do you know if the working group has been formed?
So as I understand it, Mr. Chairman, the first meeting of the working group is due to occur 30 days after the execution of the bill, which was when?
I think it's going to. I
November
think they're
20th.
listing it as December 20th.
Right, so I'm not on that.
November 20th was,
Right, for the next, for the meeting,
30 days,
because
yeah.
we have until December 16th, according to an email I got yesterday from Robert, that was forwarded.
Okay.
That the towns have until December 16th to select whoever's going to be on the working committee.
Okay.
With the,
So
which
you
I'm
guys
like,
already received
which I'm
notices?
kind of like, I agree with the 30 days, but, you should have asked me a week ago. Seriously, that email should have come out like a week ago. And then I think it's the December 20th.
Got it.
So they asked, I think the email came yesterday, and it was asking for one representative from the towns, and obviously it includes, everyone that's, the deck, et cetera. And so we were asked to submit a name by Monday the 16th, and they were asking preferably for either a select board member or a member of the planning staff. We do have select board member Hildebrandt was selected for the town of Shirley to be a part of that working group. The email did not say when the first meeting was.
I think it's supposed to be.
It's in the bill,
um,
30 days from
The
the
law
date.
directs us to convene this working group within 30 days after the enactment of the law or by no later than December 20th. So-
It was adopted November 20th.
Right, so everything has to be done, I'm assuming all the members have to be appointed by December 20th, and then because they can't just say the meeting's gonna be December 20th, because they haven't even picked a location.
I didn't,
You know?
the way that I read it was they have to finalize December 20th, so they wanted the name submitted on the 16th. And so when they meet or when they,
I think they have to convene on the 20th.
it might be, I might have misread it.
So has AIR selected someone?
I just got the email yesterday, the board has not met. So at this minute, I don't know.
Yeah, I can leave that email.
Rich?
Yeah,
Anything from Harvard?
I didn't receive anything, so I'll check with Don.
It was sent to the select board
Chairs,
chairs
so
and the
that would be-
town administrators.
If you could circulate that, it's not my working group, but I can forward it to.
Who would
Devens
it have
committee
gone,
comment.
Devens committee?
I'm not on the committee, but I will forward to the committee
Okay.
if you send it.
Neil?
Bill, did you receive an email?
I did not.
Yeah, and neither did I, so this is news to me, so I appreciate you
Yeah.
letting us know, Brian.
Let me find it.
Working group is not off to a good start.
No.
Okay.
I'm curious, did it come from Mass Development or the state?
No, it came from,
EO,
Yeah.
EOHS.
Okay.
If I can bring it up, I can.
ELOC, is it, how's it?
Livable
It
Communities.
came from Rory O'Hanlon, who is from EOED,
Economic Development,
Of
under
ec-
Secretary.
Executive Office of Economic
Oh,
Development.
okay. Yeah.
So I will, I can pull this up. Trying to see if I written his name.
Okay.
Maybe it went in my spam folder.
So I'm sure,
It was sent to D. Ludwig in Harvard,
Yeah,
um,
that's Don, our chair.
S. Copeland in Air, so.
Yeah, it was sent to the wrong
It was
S.
also
Copeland,
Sent to Dan Nason
so.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
before this now.
Who at Mass Development got it? Can
I'm
you tell?
not seeing anybody here.
I'm
I'm
sure
not seeing anything, however, it does say
Yeah, I don't see
that
anybody from Mass Development.
as well as representatives from the DEC, Devens Committee, and Mass Development, but I don't see anyone included in this email.
Okay, the other aspect to the economic development bill was lifting the housing cap. Does anybody know if Mass Development has done anything with respect to that? Neil?
I have not heard anything, so
Okay, because they don't need a working group to move forward on that aspect of it.
they do not, and the legislation is enacted, so it's official. The housing cap is eliminated, the square footage commercial cap is eliminated. We've added the language to our Chapter 498 amendments on our website, because it is published now on the state website as well, too. So I have a meeting with Mass Development next week to talk about real estate matters, and we'll bring it up at that time.
there are 2 pages in that 300-page bill that directly address Devens. I can't remember them offhand, but they're a good read. It's probably worth, I'm sure you all have seen them, but if your constituency is looking for information about what happens next, I'm sorry, I could circulate it later, but I think there's 2 pages, maybe 2.5 pages.
Three
that deals-
sections.
Sections, okay.
There's 3 sections
sections.
that deal with Devens. And again, it's up on our website. I'm happy to send the link around.
Yeah.
Yeah, would you do that?
Good, and I'll get it posted to our
Yeah.
website.
And it has the dates for the working group and the final deliverable, which is 180 days from the execution of the bill. So there's something that needs to be handed to the Senate and to the House in 180 days about what's going to happen on Devens. Is that accurate?
Well, why would it go to the Senate and
Well,
the
the
House?
It says a report to the legislature.
Oh, okay.
That's,
Whether it's the Senate and House or the legislature.
That's their law. Okay. Okay, anything further on the economic development bill? Okay, under new business, a draft invitation to Mass Development to rejoin discussion. At our last meeting, it was suggested by Neil that we take this opportunity with respect to the grant to ask Mass Development to return to the table. In the interim, Mass Development selected a new CEO. So that provided a good entry point to make the invitation. And you have a copy of a letter I drafted, has not been sent.
On the screen, yep.
So I hope I captured the essence of what the committee had in mind. If not, I have no pride of authorship here.
I think it comes across too much of, hey, isn't that great? Congratulations, come over, meet for tea, let's chat. I think it needs to be a little bit more of, congratulations, we're looking forward to meeting with you, let's get together, we got a lot of things to do, a little bit more of that. That's how I see it.
I think it's a very well-written letter. I think it's, as I said at the last meeting, it's us being the bigger person here and doing the outreach. I like it the way it is.
Yeah, Janice, I completely concur that there's some things that need to be said, but I think as a first attempt, as an introduction, this is the way to go, this letter.
Okay.
I agree. The way that it's drafted is appropriate.
No changes.
Okay. The question I've asked to be asked here is, who should be copied on this, if anyone?
I would copy Meg Delorier, Chief of Staff, or she's not Chief of Staff, sorry, Head of Devens.
Eldridge and Senna, so that they know that we've reached out again?
Eldridge, Senna,
Well, down
Senna and Cronin.
Cronin.
Yeah.
Yes, thank
Eldridge,
you.
Cronin and Son, yeah.
I think that's good. If it needs to be distributed elsewhere, they'll do it. It'll be made public.
Secretary Howe. I don't know if it needs to go that far, but I think that's enough.
Yeah, that's a nice welcome.
Okay. I'll get this out tomorrow. All right. Okay, we'll see what happens. Between the grant and new sheriff in town, maybe we'll get a favorable response. Do you know her, Neil? Have you ever? No? Apparently she's been legal counsel, bond counsel, or something like that to Mass Development, so she's not unknown to them.
She did work under the Patrick administration, I believe, as well. But I don't,
Okay.
I've never met her, don't know her, so looking forward to meeting her.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, response to question 8, unified permitting. Let's start with the deck for a change.
You never do it in
Oh,
order
sorry,
that I have
I'm
it.
sorry, no.
No, that's fine. There we go. There you go.
The first one and the longest one. I know we were limited to words, but as I said, I think it was important to lay out exactly how things currently operate at Devens so everybody understands what we do as a commission, as a unified permitting commission. So I provided kind of our deck organizational structure so you can see who we are, all the consultants that we operate with, our legal counsel, our inspectional services, everything. And if you want to just scroll up there. Also, obviously the structure and all our legal authorities that give us the authorities and the powers that we have. The combined boards and commissions that we represent. Sorry, that next page.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's the Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, Historic District Commission, the Board of Health, Inspectional Services, as I mentioned. And not only is it a unified permitting system, but it's an expedited permitting system. So we have a 75-day review process. That's enabled to be done because of the way Devens is master planned. So there's no special permit uses at Devens. That's why we can expedite and streamline things. In addition, we have 2 different levels of review. Level 1, which is administrative approval for things that are minor in nature, and level 2, which requires a full public hearing, circulation to all the surrounding towns and so forth. It's also important to understand that we have we have coordination with a state entity as well, to the Mass DEP, to help us with any state permitting that's required for projects on Devens. State permitting can take a long time as well too, but they recognize the expedited and unified permitting system and Devens as a regional economic priority development area. Therefore, we enjoy that that partnership with DEP and have a set contact at DEP that helps streamline the state permitting process as well, to line up with our coordinated process. Those are the main elements, I think. Is there one more page, or was that it? I've already mentioned the rest. Comprehensive plan for Devens that was done, really enabled Devens to be able to do this in a unified permitting and expedited manner. So just thought it was important for everybody to understand exactly what goes in. It's a lot of detail. And it's not just as simple as a combined commission just issuing permits.
Comments? Now, Neil, you started off by saying something I intended to bring up. We did agree that the initial process would be limited to 250 words so that we wouldn't intimidate anybody. Now, so you've gone beyond that, and clearly but
just for this one, I promise.
Okay, what I'd like you to do, though, is could you do a summary to go right ahead of this that is 250 words, so that, again, somebody just wanting to get a sense of what's going on would be able to read that. Yeah. And then in your summary, you can refer to this. This will still be included on the website.
This will get posted.
So, but just if you would bring a short summary.
Happy to do that. Again, I think it was just important background information for any consultant to have as well, too,
Sure.
as well as the towns.
Oh no, I think it's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Town of Air.
Okay, oops. Wait a minute. So the Town of Air does not currently have it, but we are interested in it. So it would be something that if jurisdiction was to resume back into the Town of Air, that we would want to continue. Also, we would be interested in partnering with Harvard and Shirley as far as kind of a unified permitting. So that kind of synopsizes. So we're for it. We're going to keep it. We just don't have it right now.
Right. Okay. And that's a good point too, from the business perspective at Devens, is that all the businesses there, I think, have come to rely on it and appreciate it, and would want to know that the towns should it devolve back to the towns, or towns are willing to work cooperatively to keep it in place.
So on that, I mean, that could be one of the arguments for the word modify, as far as modifying services. So should, like in this example, the towns get back the jurisdiction, they've got to modify their services to maintain the same level of standard. So, because that's how I would view it, because I wouldn't want to lower standards. So.
Shirley?
Very similar to the Town of Air. We do not have unified permitting. So if we were to assume the historical boundaries of Shirley and Devens, we would probably be looking to have an intermunicipal agreement with the towns of Air and Harvard to continue both unified and expedited permitting. And we now have a detailed background of how to do that, if that's the case. So we can just refer to a nice document. But that would, very similar to Air. That's it would probably follow the same, be very similar to how the deck is constructed, and each region would have to appoint their own, permitting commissioners. So.
Good. John? Devens?
Oh, yeah,
residents?
thanks. I think it's undisputed that the expedited and permitting process has been instrumental in the success of everything commercial with Devens. We wouldn't change that. And you can see up here, as noted in the Administrative Working Group submission, Devens intends to maintain the existing Devens Enterprise Commission construct for a relatively lengthy transition period. The organizational structure, functions, and processes would be modified and updated as needed to tailor to the town of Devens' needs focusing on the synergy and interrelationship of the various activities. So much the same as what Neil had said, that it's an absolute game changer that happened.
Okay, Town Harvard. This is reviewed by John McCormick, who's on the planning board in Harvard, along with the Harvard Devens Committee. Consistent with what Aaron and Shirley have said as well, recognizing the benefits of unified permitting as well as the reliance by businesses and residents there. And one other thing that is mentioned in the Harvard submission that's not mentioned elsewhere, including in the extensive document that the DEC has submitted, is the fee structure and how the DEC is supported financially. They are supported independently of the tax base presently. I believe there's a provision for mass development to provide funding to the DEC under certain circumstances, as I recall. And I believe the legislation allows the DEC to collect taxes directly to support itself. Neil?
It does, but we do not collect taxes. We take a portion of mass development's taxes that they collect, and there is a provision if our funds fall under a certain amount that mass development makes us whole.
Okay. But nonetheless, so the only thing that Harvard added to it was that in the event that the Enterprise Commission cannot support itself by fees, that they would come to the town as any other department would be requesting an appropriation. And they would not have the power to tax directly as they now do. Which is something I know that in the past, going way back, caused a great deal of angst with mass development as well, to think that there would be two taxing sources at Devens. And I don't think the legislature thought that through, in my opinion.
I believe that's why there's the agreement
Right.
to take a small percentage of the taxes that mass development collects
Right.
to offset our expenses, but the majority of our revenue, our expenses are offset by our permit fees.
Permit fees, right. And I know Bill Marshall was dogged in his pursuit of the agreement that is now in place between mass development and the DEC. Okay, so that's it. Next time it's zoning and land use.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
John?
Clarification on, is it clarification on the upcoming environmental issues topic? Is that next?
No, I think
We already did that.
zoning and land use is next, and then environmental issues.
Could we get some clarification on what, we don't have to do it now.
Yep.
There's just some questions about what that,
Environmental
what
issues.
that entails, yeah. Any email,
No,
whatever.
it's such a broad.
Yeah, that's, so to
Yeah,
narrow
yeah.
that down to 250 words, we need a little more direction.
Okay, so why don't we be prepared to narrow that down at our next meeting, so it's really clear to all the stakeholders exactly what we're looking for there. Okay. Okay, public comment. Jim? Items for the next agenda, in addition to the usual?
So far,
Uh,
it's going to be the zoning,
Zoning and land use is one topic.
yeah, zoning and land use. We're going to do a clarification of the environmental.
Yeah.
Old business was, are we still going to be doing the working group update? Of
Yeah,
the-
yeah, I will call it, yes, because that will be the RFP update.
All right, and we don't need the economic bill then.
Well, you're going to, Neil, you're going to circulate the language from the legislation? Yeah, we should still talk about that, because the
Okay.
working group may be formed at that, hopefully it will be formed at that point.
Okay, all right, then it's, okay.
Okay. Any other business to come before us? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Rich, is there a second?
Second.
Logan, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Without objection, motion carries. We are adjourned.